From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. The Workers' Party in Brazil is asking the Supreme Electoral Court to disqualify Jair Bolsonaro as a candidate for the presidency following alleged illegal messaging on social media. The Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad says Bolsonaro had broken electoral law with the messages. It is alleged that a number of companies spent more than $4 million to promote the WhatsApp campaign and on other illegal contributions to the far-right candidates.
So that there is no disrespect towards me, the fight for my dignity takes place on October the 28th. I will look to rectify the damage from the attacks Bolsonaro has made on the internet, which he has sponsored with dirty money, a campaign of defamation which has no end. I will seek to rectify this at the highest level.
Let's go live to Sao Paulo and to our correspondent Brian Meir. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Some Workers' Party leaders are due to be meeting with the president of the Electoral Court about now. Can you explain exactly what they and the PDT party of Ciro Gomez are demanding?
Okay, well, basically, we have two different demands. The PDT party, which Ciro Gomez represents in the presidential race as third-place candidate, they're demanding that the election pass. And the PT party is demanding an investigation conducted by the Supreme Electoral Court to cancel Bolsonaro's mandate for massive amounts of electoral fraud.
Okay, so Brian, we seem to be having some issues with your audio. Let me just see if maybe it's a little better. Could you repeat your answer to the first question? Because some of the information was dropping out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's not okay.
The PDT party, whose candidate Ciro Gomez came in third in the presidential election first round, they're demanding that the elections be canceled. And the PT party is demanding that Bolsonaro's candidate is
very good flow, but we are still having audio problems. So we're going to try and come back to you, sort them out, and come back to you later on in the newscast. But we have other news at the moment. On Thursday, Brazilian Catholics, evangelicals, Buddhists, Jews, and believers of African religions marched through Rio de Janeiro to condemn the violence carried out by supporters of the far-right candidate, Jair Bolsonaro. Their message: love defeats hate.
In the first days of October, 50 attacks were carried out by supporters of the far-right candidate, Jair Bolsonaro, according to an investigation by the public news agency. They included serious cases like that of the capoeira master, Mao Docatende, murder in the Northeast after declaring his vote to Fernando Haddad, and the murder of a trans woman in Sao Paulo, accompanied by chants in favor of Bolsonaro.
No momento que a sociedade brasileira
At a time when racism, hate, homophobia, and human rights violations are growing in Brazilian society, with an extremely fascist project, it is necessary for sectors of civil society who defend a secular state, who defend religious freedom and diversity, make their voices heard.
On the march entitled Love Defeats Hate, these demonstrators remind people that they are followers of a leader who was himself tortured and murdered, Jesus Christ. They insist that Christians cannot vote for a candidate who supports the military dictatorship and its methods of torture.
We are Christians who fulfill the Word of God, which has a very clear message, that of love, goodness, mercy, and not that of the other candidate, even though he says he's a Christian.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. The prayer of Francis of Assisi was chanted by demonstrators to make clear their intentions.
We are here as a church, as Christians, to say no to the project of death and say yes to the project that opens a possibility of life for all, especially for those who are persecuted and those who hunger after justice.
The Brazilian people have again demonstrated in the streets against the violence propagated by supporters of the candidate of the far right. With just a few days to go until the presidential runoff, they insist that democracy will defeat hate.
Desde Rio de Janeiro, André Vieira e Sebastião Souto, Telesur, Brasil.
The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has arrived in Mexico as tensions rise over the migrant caravan trying to reach the United States. He told the reporters that he had come to Mexico to make sure that the caravan of migrants is stopped before they reach the United States. He also said that Mexico and the U.S. have a common objective in stopping the record number of migrant flows into their countries. And he also said that the recent trade agreements between the U.S., Mexico and Canada is significant in preserving the sovereignty of the three countries involved, and that economic security can also help in tackling the migration crisis.
But they wanted that caravan, and there are those that say that caravan didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. A lot of reasons that caravan, 4,000 people. But I just want to thank the Mexican government because they're stopping it, hopefully, before it ever gets to Mexico. As you know, I'm willing to send the military to defend our southern border if necessary. All caused because of the illegal immigration onslaught brought by the Democrats because they refuse to acknowledge or to change the laws. They like it. They also figure everybody coming in is going to vote Democrat, you know.
Mexico's government has warned the Honduran migrants on the caravan of the risk they face when entering the country. In light of this, caravan leaders held talks with Mexico's ambassador in Honduras with representatives of the National Migration Institute. One of the main concerns is their exposure to human traffickers. They've also discussed requirements for visa applications. Meanwhile, Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he will offer work visas to migrants when he takes office. He added that this is a way of giving an alternative to those who decide to leave their countries. The president-elect also rejected the threats of the U.S. President Donald Trump to stop migrants from reaching the United States. The main body of the caravan of Honduran migrants left Guatemala City on Thursday, heading towards the border with Mexico. In all, the caravan has now grown to some 5,000 people.
Although many could get not a proper night rest due to cramped conditions at shelters, they still managed to set out early in the morning to reach the city of Tecúnuman. They say whatever happens, they've ruled out returning to Honduras as an option, because there are no opportunities there.
The government does not look for companies to come to Honduras to generate wealth, and the truth is, we do not have any opportunities.
The United States president has called those who comprise the Honduran caravan criminals, and he's blaming Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador for sending them to the U.S.
We are not part of criminal groups. We are people who need jobs. In Honduras, only high-class people can secure employment.
Severe unemployment is what has driven Hondurans out of their homeland. Now they're desperately searching for a better life.
We don't have enough payment. Our bosses do not give enough money.
The people of Honduras are outrightly condemning the United States threat to withdraw financial assistance to Honduras. They question whether those funds are part of a grand corruption scheme.
They always threat with the withdrawal of money of Honduras president. We do not care about that money. We do not even know anything about that financial help.
I want to talk to President Donald Trump. He's perfectly aware of the situation Honduras is facing right now.
Migrants will have to walk around 10 hours to reach their next step. More people will join this large group of Honduran citizens in the next hour. They will meet in the city of Tecúnuman to cross the border and get into Mexico.
So let's go back to our conversation earlier with our correspondent Brian Mayer in Sao Paulo. Brian, thanks again for joining us. So some Workers' Party leaders were due to be meeting with the president of the Electoral Court around now. Can you explain exactly what they and the Tea Party of Ciro Gomez are demanding?
Yes, basically the PT Party is demanding that the Bolsonaro's candidacy is canceled and that in the runoff election on October 28th, Ciro Gomez faces off against Haddad because of the massive amounts of fraud committed on the social media by businessmen backing Bolsonaro, which is a crime in Brazil. And the PDT party is filing a motion to cancel the elections outright and redo the first round. And that's important because Bolsonaro's party gained 51 congressional seats, and it appears to have been done through fraud now.
So just for a matter of clarity, what exactly are the allegations against Bolsonaro?
Well, it became very clear as Bolsonaro surged in the polls with only 8 seconds of commercial airtime per night that something was amiss, and his campaign was entirely based on WhatsApp, the WhatsApp social media tool, in which thousands of groups of 256 people each were bombarded daily with hate speech, defamation against the PT party, and totally fake news stories, such as the PT was going to declare whether your children are gay or not when they reach age 5 if they take the presidency, and that Haddad was distributing erotic baby bottles in the preschool system in Sao Paulo when he was mayor. So it was a straight defamation targeted mainly at evangelical Christians. And it turns out that the money used for this was not declared. So it was basically 2 crimes he's committed. 1, setting up a kind of slush fund illegally, and 2, spreading lies and defamation through the social media.
Okay, and what is the process with this request? And is anything likely to happen in time to affect the second round of the election on October 28th?
Well, first of all, a group of fact-checkers called Alupa published an op-ed piece in the New York Times on Wednesday criticizing Mike Zuckerberg and Facebook company. And as a result, they have canceled all WhatsApp groups of over 20 people. And this has crippled the hate machine, the lying machine of Jair Bolsonaro and his people. So that's been one effect. The question as to whether the government decides to do something, we don't know. It looks like they're going to try and do some kind of palliative measures. At 4 p.m. today, Supreme Electoral Court President Rosa Weber is meeting and releasing a statement together with State's Attorney Raquel Dodge and Sergio Echegoyen, who's a general, who's the president's security cabinet chief and a personal friend of Jair Bolsonaro's. Nobody really knows what they're going to say. They could even cancel the election. But a lot of people feel like they've been protecting the right wing all along. They've been breaking the law all along and not allowing Lula to run. And so why would they go about face right now? Everyone's on the edge of their seats down here, though, wondering what's going to happen at 4 o'clock today.
Well, we shall be monitoring that decision as well. Thank you so much for your update, Brian. We appreciate your comments on this.
Thank you.
And we're going to take a short break now, but we will have more news in a few, so stay with us.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has filed a lawsuit in Ecuador seeking better access to communications as part of his asylum in in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Assange has accused the Ecuadorian government of violating his fundamental rights and freedoms. His general counsel, Baltasar Gaston, is in Ecuador to pursue his case. His legal team will also challenge the legality of the special protocol for Assange announced this week. The Ecuadorian government has expelled the Venezuelan ambassador, Carol Delgado. The decision came after Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez made some comments about the Ecuadorian president, Lenin Moreno.
I heard President Lenin Moreno saying that 6,000 Venezuelans in bad health entered in his country. That means that 149 buses had to leave Venezuela daily to Ecuador. Moreno says 1 million Venezuelans arrived to Ecuador, but that is possible only if 140 buses leave Venezuela daily for 7 years.
And in response, Venezuela has declared the Ecuadorian charge d'affaires, Elizabeth Mendez, persona non grata and gave her 72 hours to leave the country. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry says Moreno lied about the number of Venezuelan migrants in Ecuador and about their health conditions. The communique also said that this is a consequence of the latest visit of the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence to Ecuador. And Ecuadorian supporters of President Maduro gathered outside the Venezuelan embassy in Quito to condemn their government's decisions. Members of the Ecuadorian Committee for Solidarity Amongst Peoples blamed the U.S. government for instigating the action.
We demand that this bad decision be reviewed, where those affected are not just the Venezuelan people, but all peoples in our America. Integration, peace in the region is strengthened by the belligerent actions of an outdated empire that seeks to get oil and the enormous riches of Venezuela.
Thanks for the solidarity, and we will continue to work with our fellow Ecuadorians. We will continue to work in solidarity. Tomorrow there will be another flight for our fellow Venezuelans returning home, confirming again the commitment that the Bolivarian government and President Nicolás Maduro has for his fellow Venezuelans.
The Caribbean has been declared Zika-free by the World Health Organization. The WHO made the announcement following the release of data from CARPHA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, which showed that transmission of the Zika virus had been interrupted for more than 12 months, and current infection levels are almost undetectable, so there is very little risk to residents and visitors, which is great news for the region as it's just launched its new regional tourism marketing campaign, The Rhythm Never Stops, as it seeks to boost interest in a region that has seen a drop in visitor interest as a result of natural disasters and other issues. Two student protesters have been detained in Trinidad and Tobago during a demonstration at the University of the West Indies. Police clashed with students who blocked the south entrance to highlight security issues on campus. A series of robberies and violence have been reported in recent weeks, which culminated in the alleged bloody assault on a female student. Campus principal, Professor Brian Copeland, attempted to allay protesters' concerns.
We have a system in place. We have a security force in place. We work with the state police. We will next week be commissioning a pilot where an app that has been created that will run on your phone that will expand our security system even more. 1,000 students will be piloting this project as of next week.
If you were a student on this campus, do you feel safe? Would you feel safe? Would you stand here and listen to an administration that is telling you we're doing all we can? It's not enough. The same remedy has failed. When will we see change? When?
In Chile, 6 young people were detained at the end of student demonstrations in the capital on Thursday. The high school students were arrested for rejecting the government's bill called Safe Classes. The initiative proposes to expel from campuses young people who choose to participate in demonstrations considered violent. For activists, the proposal will serve to criminalize student protests. Time for the second break of this newscast. World News is next. Stay with us.
developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud, amigos. Tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Women are commemorating World Breast Cancer Day, a day dedicated to increasing awareness for early detection and treatment.
According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer is by far the most common cancer in women worldwide, in both developed and developing countries. There are about 1.38 million new cases and 458,000 deaths from breast cancer each year. Incidence rates vary greatly worldwide and are increasing in developed countries because of increased life expectancy, urbanization, and a more Western way of life. 16% of women have or have had breast cancer. The best way for women to prevent it is to carry out regular self-examination, where they need to look for change in skin, malformation, and pain in the nipples. Experts say these simple tips can help women detect breast cancer symptoms early, before it becomes life-threatening.
In the latest development of the investigation into the disappearance of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Turkish authorities have denied sharing the audio evidence of the alleged murder of the journalist in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. However, Turkish prosecutors have started questioning the consulate staff.
Turkey has not given a voice recording to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo or any other American official. Chief Prosecutor of Istanbul has launched an investigation, and we are waiting for the results of this investigation.
And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced that he will host a summit on the Syrian crisis with the leaders of Russia, Germany and France in Istanbul next week. Turkish state media reports that Syria's rebel-held Idlib province and the political process to solve the conflict will be the focus of the meeting. Russia and Turkey decided on Thursday to give more time to Islamist groups to vacate a buffer zone they were meant to leave by October 15th under a ceasefire deal. Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived into Uzbekistan for his first state visit under the country's new leadership in hope of striking business deals. The two countries are set to sign deals worth over $20 billion, mostly for the building of a nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan. Under the previous leader, Islam Karimov, who died in 2016, relations were minimized, but now the two leaders plan to reinforce economic ties, especially since there are an estimated 2 million Uzbeks working in Russia. Now let's take a look at what other stories are making headlines around the world.
Thousands of people have gathered in the city of Kherson in Crimea to pay respect to the victim of a college shooting. At least 21 people were killed and around 40 got injured in the attack. An 18-year-old student started shooting at students and teachers on Wednesday before killing himself. Authorities still investigate the reason behind the mass homicide. Hundreds of Hindu devotees in the Indian state of Kerala have been blocking the entrance to a temple from female worshippers. Since Wednesday, the protesters, mainly men, are against a court order that allows women of menstruating age to enter the Ayyappa temple, which has been banned since 3 decades. About 100 riot police are still battling, unsuccessfully with protesters in a bid to escort women to the temple.
The Tantri informed me that if we are attempting to take the women ahead, the Tantri would close the temple. Closing the temple is a ritualistic disaster, which we can't afford. So we have taken them up to the temple, we have given them protection up to the temple, but the darshan is something which the Lord should give with the priests consenting.
Malaysia's former Deputy Prime Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi has been charged with 45 offences, including money laundering and corruption. He's the leader of the opposition party, the United Malays National Organization, which was ousted in the general elections in May 2018 after 60 years in power. Zahid Hamid pleaded non-guilty and was freed on bail.
One particular person.
The world's longest sea bridge connecting mainland China, Hong Kong and Macau is set to open to the public next week. The 55-kilometer crossing is seen as an engineering masterpiece as it includes a snaking road bridge and an underwater tunnel. Started in 2009, the construction was pestered with delays, corruption cases, budget overruns and even the death of workers. Critics see the bridge as yet another way Beijing is further integrating Hong Kong into the Chinese mainland. And that story brings us to the end of this newscast. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisyourtv.net/English. For viewers in Africa, you can watch us on Stush. That's channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And everyone can join us on social media because we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Tell us your English. I'm Sunny Gray. Thank you for watching.